they're competing, you're still going to hear about them. And the other sort of thing that I think that the athletes really appreciate, apart from the fact that we're sort of building awareness for them and generating support, is the fact that we're always positive. We never sort of criticize them. The fact that if they were 23rd, means they're the 23rd best in the world. I mean, and I don't think there's anything where sort of me, you, or most people can say I'm the 23rd best in the world at anything. And we try and get out of that sort of conventional thinking that unless you win a medal, you haven't done very well. That just isn't realistic. And also what that means is that when there is success, when there is a medal, let alone a gold medal, so that's something that should be celebrated, really, and not sort of taken for granted. So that's very important to have in mind. Because, the thing is with our athletes, there isn't a lot of money in Israel for sport, and more so, like I said, because the fact that they play a lot of them play these supposed minor sports, right? And so it's important for them to know while they're toiling away and sacrificing so much, that it's not in vain, that people there, either in Israel or fans of Israel all over the world, are really sort of supporting them, and cheering them on, and that's like we said, I've been very privileged to meet a lot of the Olympians, Israeli competitors, and everything they say is they're so appreciative for what we do. This is a hobby. We do this, like I said, out of a love of Israel.
Some kind of a hobby. I mean, it's really blowing up in the best way. Sports is a great unifier. It brings people together, and you're fulfilling a void. Tell us how you're developing such a passionate community.
Like I said, it's really in the content, and I think in the integrity of the content. We're not trying to sell anything. We're not going for controversy. In a way, it's sort of a case study for the reason why sort of social media was invented. And remember in the early days, of social media, there was such sort of a new-eyed sort of maybe naive attitude, because it was good, and people were using it for can you help me with this? Or maybe there's someone on the other side of the world who, can help me. And now sort of it's become sort of cynical and, argumentative, and a lot of conflict on social media. Like I said, we're not looking for that at all. Really, it's just, sharing the stories of our athletes. And I think, like I said, people love that, mainly because A, it makes them feel good, but B, because they're not getting this content from anywhere else. Because we're not a business, and we don't have any demands, we're not looking for things that become viral. They just happen on their own accord. That a post will get thousands of likes or whatnot. And like I said, now that there's trust in what we've got, they keep coming back and they enjoy it. So yeah, like I said, we're really inspired by the athletes, and this is our way of honoring them.
That's so awesome. So tell us, what can we look forward to in 2023? Do we have a jam-packed sporting calendar?
Yeah, so in 3 weeks is going to be the under 20 World Youth Cup in Argentina. This is actually a soccer tournament, and it's the first sort of global tournament that Israel has qualified for in over 40-something years. The last being the soccer team were at the Montreal Olympics. This has obviously made news in recent times because the tournament was meant to be held in Indonesia, but was stripped because people there suddenly woke up that Israel was coming, and at the last minute it was cancelled, and now it was moved to Argentina. And Israel's in quite a tough group with Senegal, Colombia, and Japan. So for them to sort of make the top two and advance to the knockout rounds, they really have their hands filled. But they did so well at the European Championships in order to qualify for this tournament. They came second. They were leading against England in the final, but lost in extra time. And in the semi-final, they beat France, which was just unbelievable considering how strong the French are. So that's going to be amazing. It's going to be an incredible tournament. and be very exciting to see.
Well, we're going to have you coming back here on Modiin and Beyond to bring us regular results.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. Israel's actually privy to be hosting a lot of incredible sporting events this year as well. In August, we're going to have the Under 20 European Athletics Championship. And this is going to be right before the actual World Championship. So there's going to be a number of European athletes who are young, under 20, who'll be competing in Jerusalem before heading off to the World Championships. And this comes after Jerusalem hosting a successful under 18 athletics championship. So we're that's great. Also in women's basketball, we're going to be hosting some of the Eurobasket competition in June. And men's volleyball will be hosting in August. And, that's one of the things that's sort of been quite nice, as the page has evolved, we really see that Israel's sporting prowess has also evolved in hosting events. Also, Tokyo last year, 2 years ago, as you mentioned, was our best ever Olympics, winning 2 gold medals and another 2 bronze medals. So it's been great to sort of have something to cheer about while we've been doing so well. And I sort of mentioned the women's basketball, and that's one of the things that we're also incredibly passionate about, because not just sort of the smaller sports that are ignored, but also a lot of women's sports, unfortunately, is ignored. So it's great when we've got, women athletes that we can sort of post about and promote. And one of the most remarkable stories in recent years with Israeli sport is women's water polo, that, in the last sort of 10 years, they've come from nowhere. And actually, they're going to be at the World Championships for the first time, happening in a couple of months in Japan. So that's going to be incredible to have an Israeli team there doing well. And I think, again, this is a type of story where not many people would be aware that it's a real sort of thrill to let people sort of know about.
Well, everybody, let it be known that Israeli sport is on the map, especially women athletes. David, tell us where we can find your page. How can people follow Team Israel?
So we're primarily on Facebook, facebook.com/follow Team Israel, all one word. And we're also on Instagram with the same title, Follow Team Israel. We're working on developing a web presence, but for the moment, we're most sort of prominent on Facebook.
Well, David, we're going to have to get you back here on Modiin and Beyond to tell us more about what Israel is doing in the world of sports, and get those results ready, because we're going to be crossing to you quite regularly. And coming up now, we're going to take a short music break. And Asher Stern, the head of operations at the International Legal Forum, and I are going to be discussing Francesca Albanese. What is her problem with Israel?
Hey, you don't like the way I'm talking, hey? So you stand there, keep on calling me names. No, I'm not your enemy, so if you're gonna do it, then do it. Hey, do you wanna check my DNA? All the stories time to go away and believe in fairy tales, oh. If you're gonna do it, I'm gonna stand it like a unicorn. Out here on my own, I got the power of a unicorn. Don't you ever learn that I won't look back, I won't look down. I'm going up, you better turn around. The power of a unicorn, the power of a unicorn. History break heart. It's gonna be phenomenal. It's gonna be phenomenal. You can call me queen and lead the window. You wanna see me dance? You wanna see me dance? You wanna see me dance? Watch me.
Our great hopes at Eurovision this year. It's Noah Kiggle with Unicorn. Noah, we all want you to slay at Eurovision, bring home that trophy, and bring Eurovision back to Israel. Now, hopefully with me on the line is Asher Stern. He is the head of operations at the International Legal Forum. Asher, welcome to Modiin and beyond. Now, several weeks ago, many of us were celebrating Pesach, but a family was torn apart brutally by one of the most heinous acts of terror. Lucy, Rena, and Maya D were brutally murdered in a terror attack while they were on their way to the Kinneret, and this tore the Jewish world, who were shattered into pieces. People in Britain mourning the brutal loss of Maya, Lucy, and Rena D, who held dual citizenship, and global condemnation poured in, except from one person, and that is the UN Special Rapporteur on the Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, who tweeted a particularly heinous tweet resulting in your organization, the International Legal Forum, taking action. Asher, who is Albanese?
Good to be back. Who is Francesca Albanese? Well, let's start off with her title, right? Her title is the UN Special Rapporteur in the occupied Palestinian territories. That does not sound like a biased title at all, right? It's not as if there's any inherent bias in the title, which doesn't mention Israel at all. And, you know, she in and of herself, we can talk about it a little bit later, has a history of anti-Semitism, and her position, if we remember prior members of her position include Michael Link, who also wasn't the greatest friend of Israel and the most neutral party in the world. And yeah, like you said, Francesca, has inherently been anti-Semitic for her entire career, both before and after the UN and during the UN. And she has come into the news recently for the tweet that you mentioned.
Tell us what the tweet said, because she has form when it comes to these kind of tweets. What did she tweet that was so particularly offensive this time?
So, like you said, Rolene, Israel has been under a wave of terror perpetrated mostly against civilians recently. And on top of the brutal murder of Rena Meyer and Lucy D, you also had the murder of an Italian tourist in Tel Aviv, Alessandro Parini. Alexander, may rest in peace, was a tourist. Rena Maya and Lucy had British citizenship. They were Israeli. And after these attacks, Ms. Albanese comes out and pretty much says that Israel does not have the right to self-defense. She claims that it doesn't have the right to self-defense in what she claims is occupied territories, but then, goes on to basically give directly endorsing the murder of Israeli civilians because, she doesn't mention that they were civilians. She just basically gives a carte blanche on attacking Israelis because they're in so-called, occupied territories. And she was called out on this by us and by many other organizations and by, obviously Israel's representative at the UN. And instead of saying, I made a mistake, she's pretty much doubled down on her efforts to deny Israel the right to self-defense against terror groups. I'm not going to read the exact wording of her tweet, but that was the essence of it.
Just a quick question. Did she have anything to say about Alessandro Parini, the Italian tourist who was murdered, given that she's also Italian?
She's also Italian, but she is first and foremost an anti-Semite, I think. She, if we're going to talk about her, she doesn't say anything when Israeli civilians are killed, but she's the first to jump on the bandwagon when anything happens that is, remotely possible to frame as anti-Semitic and anti-Israel.
Now she,
if we're, yeah, sorry, Rolene.
No, carry on.
I was just going to say, like, we can look at Francesca. It's always important to examine these people in their history. And like I said before, I know how she was picked, but the UN somehow manages every time to pick the most biased members to be the special rapporteurs to the Palestinian territories.
So they have an uncanny talent and ability to do just that. Now, Albanese has form when it comes to anti-Semitic tweets. I know just a couple of weeks ago, the Times of Israel ran an expose on her history of anti-Semitism. Can you share a brief history of what she has tweeted in the past?
Like you said, the Times of Israel ran a great piece. They were the ones who exposed her saying the age-old, which apparently isn't anti-Semitic, according to the UN tweet, that the Jewish lobby controls the United States. This is something that has been said also by members of the United Nations Commission of Inquiry for Israel, which is another anti-Semitic body. So it's interesting that we're seeing anti-Semites across the board, obviously claiming that we control the world, which is, they always claim this, and if we control the world, no one told us. She has a history of dismissing our security concerns, as with the most recent wave of terrorist attacks. This woman has compared Israel to Nazis. She obviously supports the BDS movement, and she's accused us of the usual apartheid, genocide, and war crimes lies. But she's taken it one step further. In 2022, in November, she went and addressed Hamas, a recognized terrorist group, and said to them, "You have the right to resist." You go tell the terrorists they have the right to resist, i.e. they have the right to attack Israeli civilians, because Hamas's rockets constantly target Israeli civilians, and that's what they see as the right to resist. And this is the woman that the US and the UN, I apologize, thinks is unbiased and can give a fair judgment on the conflict. The woman who's saying terrorists have the right to resist. In my mind, that doesn't seem very unbiased, but that's just me.
The woman who's talking to Hamas, the same terror group that's recognized as a terror group by the United Nations. I mean, you cannot make this up. This is just absolutely extraordinary. And quite alarmingly, you can see evidently that this is not a woman that is or has a vested interest in ensuring that there is peace and calm and maybe some kind of eventual peace agreement for both sides. Now, your organization, the International Legal Forum, is taking action against Albanese. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Of course, with pleasure and very much gladly. Of course, we never let anti-Semitism stand, and more so when it's on a platform like the United Nations, which the entire world sees and hears. So at the beginning, we were the first organization to actually write a letter to the UN Secretary General and the High Commission of Human Rights. We were not only calling for her removal based on her clear bias, but to completely shut down this position, which is inherently biased and which has a history of having individuals who are anti-Semitic leading this position. A call that has now been echoed by the Israeli government, representative to the UN, and many other organizations. But we realized that this wasn't the only way. Writing an official letter to the UN wasn't the only way to put pressure on them and to really stand up against anti-Semites. So we decided to take public diplomacy to its truest form, and realizing how crucial they were, a few weeks ago, we started an international petition that currently has over 5,000 signatures. And this number is going up every day. I refresh it every second on my computer. And we're telling people, sign this petition to call for her dismissal. Because this is an issue that needs to be dealt with at the core of this idea in the UN that somehow anti-Semites get a platform. And we're going to do everything that we can in our power, including what we've done and what we're planning on doing, to fight against blatant anti-Semitism and Jew hatred wherever it stands, but specifically in the UN, where we've seen in the last couple of years just raging anti-Semitism.
mean, this is mind-boggling. As you've just said, this is not the first incident of anti-Semitism at the United Nations, and I think you and I have had conversations on this forum before about the rank Jew haters, because let's call them what they are, that hold very, very specific mandates within the United Nations. We've had Navi Pillay, Francesca Albanese, and a whole string of special rapporteurs and commissioners of inquiry that propagate some of the most vile anti-Semitism. Now, I'm privileged to represent World WITSA at the UN Alliance of Civilizations special sessions on anti-Semitism, where I hear Antonio Guterres and many others speak about how the United Nations is absolutely committed to stamping out anti-Semitism in all its forms, which is quite ironic, because I think all of us who have the privilege of addressing the plenary have called them out on their rank anti-Semitism. But anti-Semitism has almost become institutionalized at the United Nations. Why do you think this is?
I think that, it's we see it at the UN, but it's all over. It's become sort of okay in the eyes of the world to be anti-Semitic, as long as you hide it in the guise of anti-Zionism, which, let's be honest, when you cross that line from criticism of Israel, which is legitimate, if you criticize it like all other countries, and you cross that line and you end up calling for the destruction of the world's only Jewish nation, or you deny Jews the right to self-determination, call it what it is. It's not anti-Zionism, it's anti-Semitism. And unfortunately, this is a phenomenon that we're seeing everywhere, from campuses in the US and worldwide, through to the UN and artists and musicians. And we're seeing it because it's becoming okay. Oh, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. I can say everything that's anti-Semitic, from the Israel lobby, the Jew lobby, through to denying the Jewish people right to self-determination, encouraging, as we've seen with Francesca, terrorist organizations with the right to resist, which means the death of innocent women, children in Israel. But it's okay, she's only an anti-Zionist, she's not an anti-Semite. And that's why I think we're seeing this become so institutionalized, because it's become allowed. People are saying, oh, it's okay, I'm only anti-Zionist, therefore I'm not anti-Semitic, therefore it's okay. It's it's a very thin guise in order to hide their true anti-Semitism.
And yet they will put on sad face with such aplomb and alacrity on International Holocaust Memorial Day as they light those candles and make sure they're photographed doing so at Auschwitz and other memorials. Do you think this will ever change? Do you think we will ever see a United Nations that does not have epidemic rank Jew hatred within its agencies and organization?
I mean, we have to be hopeful, right? There's a lot of work to do, but we have to be hopeful. I think that it's on us. Anti-Semites are going to be anti-Semites, and there's unfortunately always going to be hatred and anti-Semitism. But it's onto us to stand up to this hatred when we see it, but also to show the world we are not the monsters that they make us out to be. We are not, Francesca Albanese can get up there and claim all these things about us, but it's on us to say, listen, this is not who we are. We're open to talk, we're open to dialogue. If Francesca Albanese actually used her platform for, the good, like you said earlier, the good of maybe somehow trying to bring two sides to the table and to discuss, we're open to that, and we're open to dialogue. We're not the monsters that they make us out to be, but we're also not going to let you run roughshod over our country and over our people. We're going to stand up. We're going to call you out when you are anti-Semitic, and we're going to say enough is enough. We can be open to dialogue, but we're not going to let lies take root. And I think that that's the work that's on us, that it's on all, freedom-loving and people and countries that want to stand up to anti-Semitism and, racial hatred, to call out organizations like the UN when it's there, but also to say, we'll call you out, but we are also, if you want to take the step towards dialogue and to really creating change, we're willing to do it. It's a balance that we must have.
I mean, if criticizing the government was an Olympic sport, we would be a gold medal winner, hands down. Nobody is more critical of their government than Israelis, and governments come and go. I mean, we're a country that had 5 elections in less than 5 years. But on the subject of Albanese, what is she going to be doing next? What do you think her next plans in the near future are?
I would love to say turn a new leaf 180 and actually utilize her position for some good. Doubtful. Probably we're going to see some more biased judgments, biased statements against Israel, not calling out terror when it happens, somehow defending terrorists. And then we're probably going to see her continuing to push these lies and half-truths against Israel to keep pushing her personal anti-Semitic standing and her personal anti-Semitic values instead of actually utilizing the platform for good and to actually make a positive change in the world.
Have you had any response from Guterres or anybody in the United Nations to the petition?
We're still waiting. The numbers are going to keep growing. I will be glad when we get to 10,000 signatories to personally deliver that signatories to the United Nations and say, hi, all these people are calling out anti-Semitism. It would be nice if you joined us. Yesterday, the UN posted that they're taking a stand against racism. Maybe they should look at their own home and take a stand against anti-Semitism with people like Francesca Albanese and Navi Pillay before they start making these grandiose calls of fighting against racism.
But I thought Jews only experienced racism like redheads, according to certain UK Labour Party members. It's tantamount to what a ginger experiences. But Israel is not the only country that has called out the UN for their anti-Semitism. The United Kingdom has, the United States has, various other countries have as well. It is recognized that you have a bit of a racism against Jews problem. Why does the UN still do nothing?
That's a very good question, and one that I ask myself every day when I log onto Twitter and see more anti-Semitism from the United Nations. But I think the problem is inherent that the world sees anti-Semitism for some reason as a weed that pops up, needs to be cut down, and then can be ignored until the next time it pops up. They don't see, and if I can quote the late great Rabbi Sachs, may he rest in peace, he called anti-Semitism a mutating virus. The world tends to deal with the symptoms here and there, call out Francesca, for example, when she says something anti-Semitic, and that's it. We've dealt with the problem. But they're in essence dealing with the symptoms rather than the virus itself. We need to deal with the disease directly. This is something that obviously the UN doesn't see, but it's on us to keep pushing them, to keep flagging. You've called out Francesca, fine. Why is it that you're constantly appointing anti-Semites to this position? Why is it that there's constant United Nations anti-Semitism that keeps coming up? It's great that you keep calling it out, and it's great that the US keeps calling out this anti-Semitism, but they need to double down and say it's an inherent issue. We need to deal with this at the roots, not every time the weed pops its head. Once we all agree to deal with it at the root of the issue and attack this mutating virus in a united form, then we'll truly see change. Until then, we're just going to be constantly dealing with these individual as they see issues, and it's not. It's a much deeper issue that needs to be dealt with before we can actually say the UN is standing on its original charter to make the world a better place.
The oldest and most irrational Jew hatred or form of racism and hatred in the world. Just on another subject, because you and I have spoken on the show before about the Tel Aviv Heat, the rescinding of the invitation by the South African Rugby Union to Tel Aviv Heat to participate in an upcoming tournament. Any updates on that situation?
South African Rugby and World Rugby have pretty much said, no, there's no anti-Semitism here. It's a legitimate reason not to invite the Heat. So what happened? The BDS threatened violence, bullies threatened violence, and people backed down. They won, in essence. The bullies won because people weren't, World Rugby, South African Rugby, for some reason weren't willing to stand up to such obvious threats. They sent one letter saying that if the Tel Aviv Heat is invited, blood will flow in the streets. So threatening, the BDS movement in South Africa threatened violence, and they instead of speaking to the Tel Aviv team and finding another arrangement, increasing security, which I'm sure they would have done for any other organization, they wouldn't have given these bullies the platform. They buckled and they said, okay, we're not going to invite Tel Aviv because you threatened us. And it's a sad state of affairs when you buckle down and you allow bullies to win. And that's what's happened. And as a South African, Rolene, I'm sure you can agree with me, it's very disappointing to see. It hurts to see when those that threaten violence for racist, and anti-Semitic goals, in essence, get their way. And it's sad, and it's one of those moments where we're always proud to be South Africans. This is one of those moments when I say I'm not proud to be a South African. This is not the way the Rainbow Nation should act, but we're going to keep fighting. Eventually, the good will win. Eventually we will get to a stage where bullies do not get what they want. Today wasn't that day, but that doesn't mean we stop fighting against them.
I was just speaking before I was speaking to you, to David Wiseman of Follow Team Israel. We were discussing how sport is a great unifier. Pity South Africa did not receive that memo. Actually, before we let you go, give us an update. Where can we find that petition? If you haven't already signed it, please go and do so.
The petition is on change.org. You can search for it. It's called, the hashtag is #FireFrancesca, and say no to UN anti-Semitism. It's on change.org. It's on all of the ILF platforms, on our Twitter, on our website, on our Facebook. Search #FireFrancesca, the International Legal Forum, and you will find it. And let's get up to those 10,000 signatures so I can take this to the UN and we can say enough is enough.
Thank God for you guys at the International Legal Forum on the vanguard of fighting anti-Semitism wherever it rears its ugly head, be it on the sports field or at the United Nations. That was Asher Stern, the head of operations at the International Legal Forum. Asher, thank you so much. On the other side of this music break, we are going to be speaking coronation and Met Gala with Yael, Kinar.
I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through a drought. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around, say the city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can see clearly when you're on myself. I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, but I like this. You're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road and overdrive, baby. Oh, the city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can see clearly when you're on myself. I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, but I like this. You're the one I trust. I'm talking about to let you know. I can never say it on the phone. I'll never let you go.
שאני נראית לעצמי קפואה.
Blinded by the lights, no, I can't sleep till I feel your touch. רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. הבית שלך זה הלב שלנו, להנהלה, התרגלו להגיד מכאן, להנהלה, הבית שלך זה הלב שלנו, התרגלו להגיד מכאן, להנהלה.
שלטק מודיעין הוא מתחם עבודה שיתופי ליזמים וחברות. בשלטק תמצאו עמדות עבודה אישיות, משרדים סגורים, חדרי ישיבות מרווחים, מרחבי הדרכה משודרגים, בקיצור, כל מה שעסק בצמיחה צריך. שלטק, עסקים שגדלים יחד.
מחפשים חוויה משפחתית שוברת שגרה? דייט מוצלח ורומנטי? חוות צהלה מזמינה אתכם לרכיבת שטח חווייתית במיוחד. בתוך הנוף עוצר הנשימה של עמק איילון. חוות צהלה, תתכוננו להתאהב. לפרטים 055-662-6773.
טרייד סטיישן, אפליקציית המסחר זוכת הפרסים. לסחור רק עם הטוב ביותר. אליט פלטפורמס, המקבצה הפיננסית שלכם.
ברוכות הבאות למכללה האקדמית לחינוך תלפיות בחולון. מכללה שהיא בית. בבית שלנו יש מרצים עם תשוקה לחינוך. סגל מנהלי עם תודעת שירות גבוהה, והמון יחס אישי לצד מצוינות אקדמית. אלפי בוגרות המכללה המובילות את שדה החינוך בישראל היא העדות הטובה ביותר, שמכללת תלפיות הינה המקום הנכון ביותר עבור מי שרוצה להצליח, להשפיע ולחנך את דור העתיד. כי החינוך מתחיל מהבית. לצד המתקנים הפיזיים המתקדמים, המערכים הטכנולוגיים והקמפוס המתחדש, אנו מציעים לכן 5 מסלולי לימוד לתואר ראשון. חינוך לגיל הרך, חינוך יסודי, חינוך על יסודי, חינוך מיוחד ואומנות. כך שכל סטודנטית תוכל לבחור את המסלול המתאים ביותר עבורה. במכללת תלפיות תמצאי את כל היתרונות במקום אחד, יחס אישי ותוכנית מותאמת אישית. קמפוס בוטיק חכם וחדשני, מרחק הליכה מתחנת הרכבת, כל זה במרכז הארץ. כולנו כאן בשבילך, מאמינים בך. צוות מכללת תלפיות.
מכללת תלפיות לחינוך, ללמוד לתואר ראשון עם החברות שלי בדרך שלי. זו תלפיות שלי.
רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים.
Welcome back to Modiin and beyond on Radio Modiin, where the Toshavim Medabrim. I'm Rolene Mox, and I've been waiting for these 2 events all year. I know my next guest, Yael, Kinar, has as well. We want tiaras. We want, I see you've got your Met Gala fabulousness on, as always. We want tiara, we want crowns, we want carriages, we want the 7,000 military personnel on Saturday. The coronation is upon us, the crowning of King Charles and Queen Camilla. I will be glued to GB News, watching all the coverage. What are your thoughts with the upcoming event?
Well, I feel like I should defer to the more British accented South Africans among us, but we're going to get a big show. No one produces an event quite like the Brits. We experienced it recently, unfortunately, with the funeral. We've had some glorious royal weddings, and the coronation, though I think it's requiring some extra, maybe forced enthusiasm for now, but maybe fake it till you make it. Once we actually see them in their outfits and shining crowns, we might get in the mood. I'm still having a hard time with Queen Camilla rolling off the tongue, but I will get there. And personally, I'm all about the headgear. I'm waiting for feathers, for fascinators, tiaras, top hats, the whole thing. But we'll be a lot smarter next week. For now, we have a lot to tide us over with last night's events.
Well, there has been so much discussion on the Twitter sphere. Will Princess Catherine wear a tiara? Will she wear a crown of flowers?
Flower crown.
So many different.
I don't know. I would love to see that. Very unexpected. I mean, a lot of teenage girls, frankly, have been rocking the flower crown in very sort of Woodstock, California. She can do no wrong. If she's going to make flower crowns trend, count me in. But she has enough sparkly diamonds on demand that she can access. So I guess she's keeping us on our toes.
My thoughts is she won't go for a tiara, but she might go for a glorious coronet. This is a coronation. Buckingham Palace have said that balcony is going to be dazzling. And this is what we want from the Brits. I see the British Army have said 7,000 military personnel, including from 40 countries. Those are Commonwealth countries, all practicing their military parade. I loves me a military parade. I was on the beach for Yom Ha'atzmaut watching that F-35 do its twirls. I thought they were only for me. Those F-15s doing combat dogfighting. It was wonderful. But Saturday, are you listening, King Charles, Your Majesty? We want the carriages. We're going to see that big gold carriage. We want the military personnel. We want gowns. We want crowns. We want the whole thing. Our President Herzog, will be representing the state of Israel, doing us proud. Mr. President, a nice tiara, fascinator, please. What?
My darling, I believe your wish is their command, and you're going to get it all. Because our beloved Charles, which I'm again willing it into existence. He's yet to be beloved, but we're getting there. Has waited 73 years for this moment. So this is the party. This is the bar mitzvah that's been planned for 7 decades, and I'm pretty sure that everything will go off just right.
Can we just give the fabulous Yael Kinar props for the bar mitzvah that has been planned for 7 decades? I'm dropping the mic. But you and I love an annual event. We speak about it a lot offline, and that is the Met Gala. Shoot, go for it.
A soothing balm for my aching soul in these times. We had to give up during COVID. We skipped a year. But the annual Met Gala, which takes place the first Monday in May, and yesterday happened to be May 1st, and just the place to be. Anybody who's anybody. You cannot just get a ticket online. It's by invitation only, and then $50,000 a ticket on top of that. It is the prime fundraiser for the New York Metropolitan Museum's Art Costume Institute, and they run exhibits throughout the year, but they're not funded in the same way that the rest of the museum is. And Dame Anna Wintour has really spearheaded and made this the place to be for anybody fashion related and pop culture related. It sort of becomes this moment of for deciding who is and isn't worthy of being invited. Sports figures, politicians, music, fashion, and there's a theme every year which guests are encouraged to dress accordingly. This year was in honor of Karl Lagerfeld, who was the legendary head of Chanel for many, many years. And I, in an homage today, have channeled my inner Karl in black and white and a nod to Chanel.
Can I just say how fabulous you look?
Thank you. I even threw on a red lip for the occasion. Radio or no radio, I have to make people aware of the lip choices I've made. And Karl Lagerfeld, a gifted designer, a difficult man, not politically correct, not especially polite, adjacent to various controversies. I mean, it was also a different time, 80s, 90s, some racist comments, some body shaming comments on who is and isn't worthy of his high fashion, but he was a tremendous influence in the fashion world, and that cannot be denied. He had his unmistakable long white hair and fingerless gloves and a high white starched collar and a ridiculous hat named Choupette, who would only fly business and attend the world's fanciest events. And some of the guests on the red carpet yesterday channeled their inner appreciation for this feline. And we had Jared Leto dressing up basically as a cat. And we had some sparkly kitten purses as well. So everything was about Karl. Everything was about Chanel. We had a lot of black and white. We had some pregnancy debuts, all of them with second babies. Serena Williams showed up with a fabulous baby bump. Rihanna already knew she was pregnant. Karlie Kloss, who was supermodel, converted and married to the other Kushner, Jared's brother. So definitely anybody was there. We had our Kardashians. We had Anna Wintour debuting her love interest, Mr. Bill Nye, who have come out and confirmed that they are dating. So I don't know. You tell me, were you pleased?
Vilna, that sounds Israeli.
No, he's a Brit. He's an actor, and he's age appropriate. They're both 73. She's been divorced for many years. She's the mother of 2 and grandmother of 3. Nobody thinks of her as a particularly warm and fuzzy, but she has a family life, and she's an avid tennis player, and she knows all the cool people in all the cool places, and strutted that carpet. I was very pleased with the fashion I saw. What did you think?
For me, the real standouts were people like Nicole Kidman wearing that gorgeous gown that she wore in her Chanel No. 5 debut. I loved, and she didn't make it into many photographs, was Princess Charlotte of Monaco, who is the current face of Chanel. She is absolutely beautiful. I think we have to give props to Jared Leto for going as Choupette. It couldn't have been easy carrying around a big cat head. I mean, I know when my cat flies, it only likes business class. So those were the clear winners for me. And yourself?
Enjoyed. I mean, I thought Emily Blunt looked fantastic. I thought we had some models of a previous generation that brought it. Naomi Campbell looked fantastic. Kate Moss was there with her daughter, who was beautiful. We had Gisele Bündchen, the newly divorced from Tom Brady. So it wasn't all about the youthful TikTokers and up and coming stars. I thought there was really representation, Glenn Close, just across the board. And some years the theme lends itself to be a little camp, a little over the top. It is the Costume Institute, so it's a very different look often than you would see at the Academy Awards or other fashion events. People take risks, people team up with particular designers to showcase a look. But I really think that Karl Lagerfeld and Chanel lent itself to class, nothing too crazy, and just 100 variations on a theme, but I was very pleased.
Well, I am a lady who believes that every woman should rock a fabulous red lipstick, and rocking it today, looking magnificent. Boy, have I missed you. Yael Kinar is our entertainment guru. Yael Kinar, that's going to be it from me, Rolene Marks, for this edition of Modiin and Beyond. Thank you to all my guests, David Wiseman from Follow Team Israel, Asher Stern from the International Legal Forum, and rocking her fabulousness is the Yael Kinar, our entertainment guru. And a huge thank you to Pe'er Atia who is my engineer, who makes sure that everything goes according to plan and I don't press the wrong buttons. I'm Rolene Marks. I'm out of here. Join me again next Tuesday morning.
I seen a girl on a one-way corridor, stealing down a wrong-way street. For all the world like a Berlin toreador. She had wheels on her feet. The cars do the usual dances. Same old cruise in the curbside crawl. The roller girl, she's taking chances. Just love to see her take them all. No fear alone at night, she's sailing through the crowd. Enemies, his phones are tight and the music's playing loud. Hallelujah, here she comes, Queen Roller on. And enchanté, can I say? Can I? Oh. You know, she used to have to wait around. She used to be the lonely one. But now that she can skate around town, she's the only one. No fear, but on at night she's sailing through the crowd. It is his phones are tight and the music's playing loud. She gets rock and roll in a rock and roll station. In a rock and roll dream. She's making movies on location. She don't know what it is. And the music maker wanna be the story. And the story was whatever was the song, what it was. Roller girl, don't worry. DJ play the movies all night long. She told us she's taxi drivers just for fun. It's like read their lips. Said, Toro taxi. See you tomorrow, my son. So she let a big truck grease her hip. She got a whole world in the city. Yeah. Can it true though? No. She got her own world in the city. The saints being so rude to her. He is alone at night, sailing through the crowd. It's his phone so tight and the music's playing loud. She gets rock and roll in a rock and roll station. In a rock and roll dream. She's making movies on location. She don't know what it means, but the music maker wanna be the story. And the story was whatever was the song, what it was. Roller girl, don't worry. DJ play the movies all night long. Slipping in the slide, yeah, life's a roller ball. Slipping in the slide, skate away.